Good evening, everyone. Allison Schaberg here. We are happy to be here tonight with ADDA-SR. That's the Attention Deficit Disorders Association, the Southern Region. This organization was founded back in 1987, long time ago, by a lady by the name of Pam Esser, who is still running the organization today. There are ADDA chapters all across the state of Texas. You might be joining us from another state, and we're glad you're here. It's kind of a relative topic to all states. It's not state specific tonight. Again, I'm Allison Schaberg. I lead the ADDA-SR Fort Bend chapter. And years ago, we used to meet in person long before COVID. And then what we learned is that these Zoom meetings are sometimes a little bit easier for busy parents that are trying to navigate dinner and homework and all the other moving parts as parents that we navigate. ADDA-SR has a membership. It's relatively cheap. I want to say, don't quote me, we'll put it in the email, but I think it's less than $40 a year, and there's a professional membership as well for any professionals that are here. You are never required to join. This is not a sales pitch tonight. We don't do sales pitches. You're never required to join this organization, but from one parent to another, I just wanted to tell you it's an awesome organization, and they do have an annual conference that is really good, and they pull in top talent from all across the U.S. for that conference. And then also you have access to the other chapters and their other meetings. There are some chapters that are for adults. Our chapter has predominantly been parents with kids with ADHD, ADD, and they've kind of changed some of the terms through the years. So tonight's webinar is a webinar, which means that we can't see you or hear you, but we know you're there and we're glad that you're here. If you're planning your time, we're going for an hour. We have a hard stop at 7:30 tonight, so we will be done by that time so you can plan your evening. We invite you to put your questions in the chat box. We're going to answer just as many of those questions as we can during the time that we have together. And don't be shy in asking questions. Ask the question, because if you have it, probably somebody else does too. And you are not only helping yourself, but helping others as well. So we are happy to be back this evening with Dr. Bibi. We'll call her Dr. Bibi because that's easier. We'll let her pronounce her last name. And tonight we are talking about beyond medication, micro current neurofeedback for ADHD. So, and I know that this is a hot topic, and lots to work through on this tonight. So, Dr. Bibi, thanks for being here with us again, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, you're on mute. If I had a nickel for every time I do that a day, I'd be a rich woman. So, okay, there you go.
All
All right.
right. Well, thank you so much, Allison. It's my absolute pleasure to be here today. I'm so excited to be here again with everyone here. I'm sure there's new people who weren't here on the initial session I had a few months back. But, we're all tracking, and this, I hope, will be very beneficial for you. I'm all about, sharing information, making sure that people know what's available, that there are options. And so just grateful for the opportunity to be here tonight. So like Allison said, my name is Dr. Bibi Ladipo-Ajayi, but everyone calls me Bibi or Dr. Bibi. And I am a passionate professional dedicated to the fields of pharmaceutical sciences and counseling therapy. I like to think of myself as a caregiver to caregivers. I really understand the significant impact that ADHD has on families and individuals. So today, I just really want to share a little bit about my expertise and then a little glimpse of my journey for those who are, getting to hear about me or hear me speak for the first time. I have a doctorate degree in pharmaceutical sciences, a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. I've been a pharmacist for over 15 years. And most of what I've focused on in my pharmacy career is just making sure that people have access to accurate and easy to understand information so they can make informed decisions about their healthcare, health and wellness in general, but specifically medication therapy. As a therapist, I have the honor of assisting people of all ages youth, adults, seniors, and veterans in navigating challenges such as trauma, PTSD, and ADHD. But at the heart of my work really is my commitment to nurturing relationships and empowering families. I have a beautiful family. I have three children, aged 7 all the way up to 12, and a wonderful husband. And we live out here in the North Houston area. But for me, all of this work really is really more like a mission. It didn't really begin in a classroom or a clinic, but really in my own family. I have a brother who has two beautiful sons, both diagnosed on the spectrum and ADHD. And so I've watched firsthand what it means to face the unknown, and just really ride the emotional highs and lows to keep showing up every single day for your child, this child that you love more than anything, right? One of my nephews is completely nonverbal. Well, he's actually transitioned out of that, with a lot of therapy, a lot of different treatments. He's actually starting to speak and, actually not, fully, but say certain words. And so it's just been a wonderful experience to see that. So it's all of this has just taught me that there's never just one answer when it comes to ADHD or autism. There's no single strategy or medication that's a magical fix. But when we approach it like a puzzle, right? So we're careful about it, we're compassionate and persistent, wonderful things can happen. And so that really is what drives me, helping parents piece together that puzzle, helping them explore new tools. And last time I talked about pharmacogenetic testing. And so today we're going to be talking about microcurrent neurofeedback, which is a form of neurofeedback. And I'll kind of share in details kind of what the difference really is. But technically, I just love to create a space where parents can feel seen and understood. And I believe every step forward matters. Okay.
Can you just,
Yes.
for those that are attending that didn't attend the last one, I'll have our team send the last recording and slides as well as this one. But just
Mhm.
give us a quick little rundown of that pharmacologic testing because I'm a firm believer in this. For those
Yeah.
of you that weren't here the last time, there is some testing that you could do that can kind of flesh out what might be better, what might work, what might not work. So just give them a little paragraph on that, and then we're going to dive right into the neurofeedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, like she said, it's really all about options, right? We're not stuck as parents, right? There's so many alternatives and things that we can do to be more precise in the way that we help our children. And so, pharmacogenetics is really just a study of how your body interacts with medications. This is not really a new field. It's something that's been evolving over time. So there's a whole lot more information about it now than there was, a few years back. But really, what it does is, if you do decide this is, yes, we need to take medication now, and this is the option or the route that we're trying to pursue, there's ways to be more precise in the way that you approach that. And your doctors can be helpful with that when they, kind of get on board with it. But essentially, based on this test, and it's usually a cheek swab or a little blood spot, and they're able to determine, or that test is able to determine just kind of what type of way your child metabolizes certain medications. And so essentially, it'll say things like, this particular medication should not be, it's not recommended in this child because they're a fast metabolizer or they're a slow metabolizer. And it's really the way that their body, based on their genetics, breaks down certain chemical substances. And so technically it is, I feel like it's a no-brainer. Everyone should have a pharmacogenetic test, even, outside of ADHD, just because you never know. I've heard of horrific stories where the same Tylenol that you and I probably take on a regular, that's not a big deal for us, can cause a major problem for somebody else because of their genetic predisposition. And how much more um, can we prevent that by just, doing this test? I see it as an investment in, like, really for a lifetime, because it's not a test that you have to do, over and over again. It's a one-time test, and it really just shows that, these types of medications, may not be safe, may not be effective, and what is, maybe an alternative, or what's the best route, or maybe we need to reduce the dose, and all those things the doctor uses to make a more informed decision about your child's medication therapy.
So I just want to say that, I found out about this years ago and did it for one of my kids, and we found that the very medicine that they were taking for ADHD was what was causing all these other horrible symptoms and anger and aggression and other things like that. And it was just like, wow. I personally, this is, Allison's personal opinion, is I think it should be the law. Like they ought to just do this for every person that's taking any kind of mental health medicine, ADHD, anxiety, depression, you name it,
Yeah.
antipsychotics, any of the mood stabilizers, they should do this. And that's what that test tests for. And
Mhm.
just in case you're hearing this for the first time, usually the psychiatrist can do this test. It's the psychiatrist, not usually the pediatrician, sometimes, but it's usually the psychiatrist or psychologist office that can do it. And the other thing that I will say is if you want this, don't take no for an answer. GenSight is one, GeneSight is one that I know of, and I know that Dr. Bibi knows of other ones as well. And you can Google that on the website. And that test, the crazy thing is a lot of times insurance covers it, but if it doesn't, it's like a one-time fee of like 300 or $350.
Yeah.
It's not a break the bank for that kind of knowledge.
Mhm.
So I'm just really a huge fan. So if you ask for this test and your doctor gives you pushback, one of the things I found, and you might not agree with this, Dr. Beebe, but what I found is the doctors that give you pushback, it's because they're not signed up with these testing people and they're
Mhm.
busy and they don't want to go through the effort to order the test. The other
Yeah.
doctors that don't give the pushback, because they're already signed up. So if they tell you no, just say next and go to somebody else, is what I would say.
Yes, no, and to add to what you said, I totally am in total agreement. Sometimes doctors just don't even know about this. Not that they're not, like they've heard about it, but it's going to be another thing on their plate, and they don't, they're already busy, you know what I mean? And so they just don't want to bother with it. But it doesn't mean that they can't order it for you. Like they can do that if you're willing to, come out of, pocket with the cost. But even if the doctor just agrees that yes, it probably is necessary because your kid has failed several medications, like many things haven't worked. That's really what insurance needs to approve it, like it's medically necessary, and they've had multiple failures on other medications. So, just letting them know, hey, I understand, like you as a parent, you've done your research, you understand it, you're willing to do the test. They just need to approve it with these companies, and and that's it. And it just really helps to be more precise in, what to try next if that's what you want to do. But it's really a, like you all probably already know, really a messy trial and error without that,
Which
and so
affects the child and their schoolwork
yeah,
and their home life and all the
yeah,
other stuff.
yeah.
So if we could prevent that, like, so to me, I mean, it red light, yellow light, green lights these meds. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you've got something on the red list, then maybe we're not going to try that one,
We
right?
won't. Yeah.
So I think it's just good feedback. And so anyway, we're going to move on because we
Yes.
did an entire webinar on this last time. But just in case anybody was here that didn't hear it last time, I just wanted you to know that it exists. Your psychiatrist absolutely should know about it. If they don't, then that would be concerning to me. But they should know about it. And like she said, it's a one-time test, so it's to me, well worth the money. So okay, let's get
Okay.
back to the neurofeedback and dive into that.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And so, yeah, if there's any questions about that, feel free to reach out. We can, I'm happy to answer questions and discuss with you all. All right, so today we're going to talk about microcurrent neurofeedback. How can you all put in the chat, just for who's here, put a, or maybe a hand up. I know we can't see you, but in the chat, maybe you can put your hand up or something, or say one or yes if you've ever heard about this. I just kind of want to gauge the room to see, if anyone knows anything about this or has heard about it. Please. Anybody? No? Yes. I'm not, okay, so I see some no's. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, good. So it's a mix. And this is, what I'm here for is to kind of share some of this information with you and, make sure that you leave this room with enough information to, hey, even dig deeper and say, look, I want to really look into this, or reach out, and ask additional questions, see if it's, a right fit for you. But so we're going to be exploring this exciting non-medication approach. So keyword non-medication, medication is not involved for ADHD, but really has so many other applications, and I'll talk about that later. But what it really does is it offers families an alternative route for managing ADHD without relying solely on medication. All right. And it is a promising option, especially for those looking for an effective, different method, um, just outside of medication. So, as we've established, every child is different, right? Every child has unique needs. It might be the same condition, the same, diagnosis, but even the way that it presents in each child is different. And this, means that we really need to be precise and intentional in the way that we, treat these ADHD symptoms. So why should we consider microcurrent neurofeedback for managing ADHD? Well, it offers a safe and effective alternative for those who are cautious about using medication or just haven't seen the desired results with traditional treatments. Okay. And this approach stands out because what it really does is it targets the root causes of those ADHD symptoms. So, medications usually focus more on, the chemical imbalance. Now, what we're doing here is focusing more on the electrical imbalances in the brain. It instead of just, masking the symptoms, which is what medication mostly does, right? It addresses the dysregulated brain activity. And so doing this, it helps restore balance and promotes natural self-regulation between the neural networks in the brain. Okay. So I want you to just visualize that, with microcurrent neurofeedback, we're more focused on the root cause, where with medication therapy, we're just kind of on the surface, kind of like dealing with the things, right? And so the treatment is customizable. It's tailored to each child's specific brainwave pattern, and it can be adapted for children dealing with additional challenges like anxiety. So the more somatic type sensory and processing issues, and personalization is key because it enhances overall well-being. Once again, by addressing the underlying neural communication issues. Okay, so the connection that the brain makes with itself, with the body, all of that is enhanced with this therapy. And unlike some traditional approaches that might simply suppress symptoms, once again, microcurrent neurofeedback is aimed to enhance overall well-being. So what starts to happen is, yes, it solves the problem with maybe insomnia, but then overall it starts helping with motivation to do things. And I've seen this personally with my clients, is like there's a trickle down effect, really. Like one thing works and then other things start to work. And just improving overall, quality of life, because what you're doing is improving how the brain communicates and functions, with other parts of the body. Okay. All right. Next slide. Thank you. All right. So let's talk about some benefits. Once again, this approach significantly improves focus, which we all know is a big deal when it comes to ADHD symptoms. It allows children to stay on tasks longer and minimizes distractions, which enhances their performance both at school and at home. I have a personal example. When I first started, having my kids have this treatment, I remember the first session my son had. First of all, he had a wonderful night's sleep, and sleep wasn't really an issue for him. But one of the things that we noticed, and even he noticed, and was his testimony, was the next day, usually because I homeschool partially. And so the day that we had homeschool, which was the next day after the first session that he went through his work in less time than he normally does. And he was able to kind of stay focused throughout that time. So that was the first kind of testimonial I had when it came to focus, using it, on him. But yes, it does minimize distraction. It enhances performance both at school and at home overall. And that just gives the kid more confidence, right? And that's what you want for your children. So next, it also reduces impulsivity by decreasing disruptive outbursts and impulsive decisions. Children can now enjoy better social interactions and enhance self-control, which is a big deal, right? A lot of times kids get written up because of that, the impulsivity, not being able to sit, sit still in their seat, because of those impulsivity symptoms. So another key benefit is better emotional regulation. This method helps to alleviate mood swings, and anxiety. And I've seen this across the board, from young kids all the way up to adults, to the elderly. They're actually feeling it, even from the first session, feeling this in their body. Like it feels like, for lack of a better word, it's like so zen and just still and quiet. It feels calm, everything feels calm. Even the racing thoughts and the intrusive thoughts, for a lot of people actually gets eliminated with microcurrent neurofeedback. And so it really just helps to manage any kind of frustrations that children have just more effectively. And lastly, it enhances sleep quality. I know I talked about that briefly with, sleep. I feel like this probably is the one benefit I've seen across the board for all my clients, and usually happens really quick within the first few sessions where they were previously not able to sleep through the night. They would wake up multiple times and not be able to go back to sleep, or it was just hard for them to fall asleep, whether it was, whichever angle it came from. It significantly improved their sleep, and they woke up feeling well rested because there's sleep and there's sleep, right? So quality sleep is something that absolutely can be achieved with microcurrent neurofeedback. I've seen that firsthand.
And what
Um,
about young adults? I know we are talking about kids with ADHD, but what about teenagers or young adults? Is this something that could be helpful for them as well?
Everyone, honestly. I mean, so just like the pharmacogenetic testing, I feel like this is even something, and I'll share more about the other other areas where it's been seen to be very beneficial. But yes, everyone across the board. I don't do it on a regular basis, but I've done it, like especially when I'm feeling super stressed out. It just has a way of just helping that brain body connection again. And I'll explain to you kind of the way I explain it to a lot of people is this, like we're constantly, a lot of us, in this fight, freeze, fight, place, which is the sympathetic, where the sympathetic nervous system is like highly activated, right? Then we need our sympathetic nervous system. But a lot of times when we're consistently in that stressful place, right, where we're not getting enough sleep, we're not eating the right foods, and so our body is like holding on and thinking, oh my God, what do I need to protect this person from again, what do I need to be alert about? And so we're kind of stuck in that from day to day. And we don't easily shift back into our parasympathetic, which is more like the calm. It knows what to do. It knows how to, like, if you hurt yourself, it will quickly heal. But, because you're in that fixed, fight, freeze, fight place, the body is like in a place of tension and stress. And so what happens is your body will tend to stay in that for a long period of time, thinking this is the new normal. This is our normal. But what microcurrent neurofeedback does over time is it starts to help the body to balance that through the brain waves. It just balances back so that now your body knows how to just shift back into the parasympathetic when it's, as needed, because it is needed. And then your body starts to heal because that's what it's created to do, to heal, right? And then, back and forth, like whatever is needed. If it needs to go into sympathetic, it will do that, but it knows how to shift back. And how I describe it for people is like, it's really like giving yourself a jump start. Like, okay, this is what we need to do. This is how, you remember how to take care of yourself, right? And so it's reminding, the brain to remind the body, like, what to do because guess what? You're safe. Everything's okay. You're going to be fine. If that makes sense. So yes, everyone, it doesn't matter. You don't even have to have a chronic condition or sickness. This has actually been used even by athletes to improve their performance. So it's not about sickness, but it just has happened that we found a lot of, benefits, especially with ADHD, just because of the unique, symptoms that are being dealt with here. I hope that answers that for you. And really, many parents observe improvements not just in ADHD symptoms. Like I told you earlier, there's like a trickling down effect that, a domino effect that happens is one area is, being improved, it tends to help everything else, get better over time. Excuse me. All right, so next I'm gonna just kind of give you a little bit of information about the features. It's non-invasive. It's a passive process. And the reason why I'm highlighting this, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, in another slide where I kind of differentiate it from traditional neurofeedback. Give me 1 second, please. A sip of water. Okay. So is the passivity, right? So I'm going to touch on that some more, in a little bit, so you'll understand that. But it uses low intensity pulses, transcranial electrical stimulation. And this means that there's no discomfort and there's no active involvement required for the child during the sessions. So that's the passive portion, right? They're not needing to do anything in particular. And this is why microcurrent neurofeedback is specifically, very good well suited for children. And because, they get easily distracted. So another key feature is that it supports the autonomic nervous system and neuroregulation. And this is important because it helps the brain regulate itself more effectively and promoting, a more balanced just overall well-being. All right. It's also important to note here that it's registered with the FDA. So the particular one that I'm talking about here is called IASIS. There's several others, but IASIS is the one that I use in my practice, and a lot of practitioners out here in the Houston area also, offer that. They have a website that you can go to, IASIS MCN. So you can look up, a practitioner that's, close to your area by entering your zip code. And you'll be able to kind of, read some more even about this. And I'll probably have that sent out to everyone as well, because I don't think I have it on any of my slides. Um, but the energy used in this process is remarkably minimal. So for those who are concerned about, like, look, I don't want anyone shocking my brain or, doing something to me, I have a few kind of descriptions here to kind of give you a picture of what this is, right? It's 3 picowatts, right? Which is a trillionth of a watt. And to really help you put that into perspective, that's about a millionth of the energy that's used by your cell phone battery. So like harmless, right? This is very low energy, and that really just helps you see that it's a gentle, gentle therapy, very all close to natural in essence. So I want you to think of it this way: it uses one hundredth of the energy of a standard A battery, right? You know the AA batteries, those double A batteries, right? That's how most people say them. Yeah, very minimal energy. So it's very gentle, and it supports your neuroregulation. So it's safe, effective, and once again, very gentle for helping children and adults with ADHD and other challenges. Okay. Any questions about that while we're there? No? Okay. We'll move on.
The only question is about side effects, if there's any side effects really.
So, no, there really are no side effects. Now, what we've seen though, when it comes to the use of this is some people are they're highly sensitive. And so what usually will happen is, and I'll give you an example. So I've been doing this for over 2 years, since I got certified and got my equipment and, use it in my practice. And I've not come across one person of all the clients that I've treated that have had like a side effect to it. Now, what may happen with certain people, and like I said, not with any of my clients, is maybe they'll feel like wired, but it could be anything, right? That's going on throughout their day, honestly. But they've said, like other practitioners that have experienced that, all they've had to do is kind of have the client back in session and do another session. And there's a name for it, but it's a different regimen, if you want to call it that. And it really is almost like a correction, if you want to call it that. But there's not anything to where like, hey, there's no side effects essentially.
How
Um,
long are the sessions and how often is the treatment administered?
Good. Yeah, and I'll talk about that some more later, but it's technically from coming in the door to leaving, it really could be about 30 minutes. The actual treatment where you're passing the currents through, depending on, because once again, it's personalized, right, per person. And it could take up to 15 minutes at most. This is like from putting the electrodes on to actually delivering the currents, the microcurrent, about 15 minutes, really. And so it's a quick thing. And what was your other question was how frequent? So once again, it's personalized. So it depends on, what the presenting issue is. Like, what are we dealing with? Is it sleep that's the major issue? Is it impulsivity? Is it something else? Is this a post-stroke patient that we're dealing with? That will determine how often. There's protocols, right, that are kind of suited for certain situations. In my practice, I typically do once a week, but I have had to do, maybe two a week, and usually separated by about 4 days. So there's going to be a break in there, but it could fit into two sessions per week. But technically, I like to make it, more of a natural type, fit into your life type experience. And so I don't like to do, too much so soon. And even just because we're learning what works for this individual person, it's a very iterative process. And so it really just depends on the person and what is going on. Okay. All right. So here, I just wanted to touch on because I'm sure some of you have, heard a little bit. I mean, some of these words are familiar to you. So what we're talking about, here is key neurotransmitters and hormones that play a crucial role in our brain's functioning. So like GABA, I know many people are familiar with that. There's serotonin, endorphins, and dopamine, and these are chemicals that contribute to feelings of happiness and focus and overall well-being. And with microcurrent neurofeedback, we tend to see an increase in these neurotransmitters and hormones. In contrast, there's also substances like homocysteine, cortisol, which we've all heard about, is that stress hormone, right? And adrenaline, which are usually, linked to stress and imbalance. And the goal with neuroregulation is to foster a healthier balance by encouraging neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to adapt and change, right? And that's how your brain's able to kind of go shift between that parasympathetic and sympathetic, because you do want that. You don't want it to be stuck in one phase at all. And so this process involves increasing the brain's ability to regulate itself, and it can lead to improvements across different areas of both mental and emotional, even physical, health. So one thing to keep in mind is that it's a gradual process, but really has, great potential for positive change over time. Okay.
So one person said, and always, I just want to say that, we keep our, the, anything shared in the chat box, we always keep, privacy as a real thing. But one person said, is it normal to be fired, from jobs that, require attention to detail? And, she said she's, worked in the accounting field for many years and is always fired after a short period of time, due to performance issues. And one thing that I will say, because we work with people with disabilities all the time, and I will say, and we've worked very closely with vocational rehab, there is help out there. And this is for adults, this is for kids as young as age 14. Vocational rehab is for individuals who have a disability that is an impediment to employment. And if this is you, then you might be a good candidate for vocational rehab, where they'll do some testing to identify what are those impediments to employment? They'll do a work evaluation. But
Mhm.
it is also true, and so yes, we've seen a lot of ADHD or ADD people fired from jobs. We've also seen a lot of ADD, ADHD people walk off the job or have a high frustration level and get mad quickly and say something they shouldn't and get fired. Those are all real things. But I just want to encourage you that you're not alone and that there's definitely help out there. And
Mhm.
vocational rehab is a really good start. Getting some of that testing, finding out what those fit is. And also for the adults on here that are thinking about these things, there are also tests out there that you can do online that will kind of tell you, like vocational tests that will kind of tell you what kind of field might be good for your brain. So like if I go to Starbucks and I look at Starbucks and I look at those people running around crazy, 17 different things going on, all these different, I mean, I feel crazy when I walk in there. And I have always thought, man, this would be a terrible job for my kid that's ADHD, you know? And there's no question, we never tried it, but I'm quite sure that we would be fired quick if we did, because we wouldn't be able to keep up. So if
Mhm.
there's working memory issues or processing speed delays that sometimes go hand in hand
Yeah.
with these diagnoses, there may be other jobs that you would be well suited for. And clearly, if you're have been terminated multiple times, it doesn't feel good. It's upsetting because you're doing the very best you can. But I just want to encourage you that there is help out there. There is testing. There is private testing. So you don't have to go sign yourself up for vocational rehab. You can get a vocational evaluation done where you pay for that, and they'll really help you and tell you, what you need to do to close the gaps to be more efficient. And they'll also tell you, what jobs may be best for you. And they may even recommend some additional courses or training to help you with those things. So it's not just a test and here you've got the answers and now you don't know what to do with them. There is real help. And Dr. Beebe, you may have some ideas on that and you may help with that as well.
No, I mean that's absolutely spot on, everything you shared. And I think what I just wanted to add to that is just, a lot of times when we think about testing and just kind of going to find out what's going on, we just think it's like, oh, someone's going to diagnose me with something and that's it. But, testing actually, yes, it's not 100%, like, precise all the time or I shouldn't use the word precise, more like it's not 100% like in terms of the information that it gives, but it really leads us in the right direction, right? Because yes, you may get a diagnosis, but that, helps you to be more precise because you're different, right? ADHD is not the same for everyone, right? In terms of like what you're experiencing. Some people may never experience impulsivity, but they are still diagnosed with that, right? So, but when you go test, when you find out, use all these resources that are available now, right? These things were not always available, in the past, but they're available now. There's so much in terms of resources that can kind of help you zoom in and zone in to like what works for me, And so I just want to encourage you to just take off any kind of fear that you have around, oh, going to get a test or going to do, that I want you to think of it more like I'm getting closer to figuring out what's best for me by doing this, and there's like Allison said, there's so many resources out there. There's so much help available. Not every job is the right fit for you, not every space environment is the right environment for you. I was thinking when you were describing the Starbucks, I was like, I would be overstimulated. That's too much going on. You know what I mean? So, but for some people, they thrive in that type of environment, and that works for them. But that would not work for a lot of other people.
And
So
in her example, if she's doing accounting is very
I
definitive.
would not do well there.
Like
Let's just say
accounting is very definitive. So like
it.
missing a specific number could mess up the whole
Yeah.
balance sheet, could mess up the whole
Yeah.
thing. And
Yeah.
so there's some jobs that the attention to detail, I mean, we always want to do our best work,
Yeah.
isn't as important, but when it comes down to numbers and accounting and K1s and all these different documents and reporting and stuff like that. There's SEC reporting and stuff like that. The numbers matter and people can be in hot water for the numbers being wrong. And
Mhm.
also, the firm could be fired if the numbers are wrong because they were paid for the service and that kind of thing. So that might be something that is just the minutia of all of that and all of the devil in the details. Again, I mean, I'm not saying that you're not great at it. I'm just saying that that might be an issue.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that vocational evaluation or some of that testing will flush that out and help you find what might be a good fit, and how you could turn your skills that you already have, to something. You might just pivot. So you might not exactly be doing what you're doing right now, but you might still be working with your background and just
Mhm.
pivot. And then it's awesome. You're happy, they're happy, everybody's happy, nobody's getting fired. And, so that it's out there. So thanks for being vulnerable and putting that in the chat box. That was brave, and we're proud of you for it, for sure. And you're not alone.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. All right, so let's dive back in. And I just wanted to touch on briefly, the fact that this is scientifically proven. So it's not one of those woo-woo type things that you're like, wait, where did that come from? There's studies, that have been conducted testing the effectiveness of this and the safety as well. And I just mentioned a couple here. There's two pilot studies conducted at the Department of Radiology and University of San Diego, and another one at the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs in 2017, and that was mostly in patients with traumatic brain injury. And really, the key thing to remember from here is that they saw a 50%, 54% reduction in abnormalities and 53% reduction in symptoms associated with TBI. So this was patient reported, and they recorded improvements in headaches, like migraines, sleep disorders, anxiety disorders, stuttering, hypersensitivity, memory, focus and concentration, as well as frustration resilience. So those were the endpoints that were, um, uh, reported, unrecorded. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so what to expect? Like I mentioned earlier, this is a slide that kind of talks about what, start to finish, what a session looks like. Um, First, there's an initial assessment. It's more questioning, verbal intake. We talk about the symptoms, the challenges that you're experiencing on a day-to-day, just kind of trying to understand what your day-to-day life looks like. And some, certain practitioners may perform a baseline assessment of brainwave patterns using an EEG. But this almost kind of to see like what the before and after is, after treatment. But it also kind of helps to tailor the approach to individual needs. So next, we move on to the actual brainwave monitoring. And during this stage, electrodes are gently placed on the scalp to record brain activity. And once again, it's a painless and comfortable process. There's a paste that's used to attach the electrodes to the head. Usually, I do like a scrub, like a quick scrub to make sure like there's no makeup or just body oils that could prevent or cause impedance, which means just preventing the electrical currents from kind of going well and going through, but also making sure that the electrodes are attached properly. Um, and so once that's done, we go into the stimulation, right, which is using those low intensity currents I talked about earlier, targeting those specific brain waves. And there's certain places that we position the electrodes depending on symptoms and what's going on. And this encourages the brain to reorganize and regulate itself. And, like we said earlier, neuroregulation is supported and neuroplasticity. So after that's done, the area is cleaned up, so you're not walking around looking messy. And then we review the session, ask a few questions about how you're feeling in the moment. What people usually experience sometimes is because of, in that moment, they're feeling more relaxed. Some people can feel like a physical like shift, almost like in how they felt when they first walked into now they're feeling like really calm. Some people actually feel sleepy, but you're not allowed to sleep during a session. So as long as you're up, it's fine. But you could really be doing anything. You could be on your phone, you could be having a conversation. I do a lot of kind of mixed talk therapy with my clients when I do it. So we're just talking through things, whatever it is they feel like talking about. or whatever comes up in conversation. So we'll do some of that. Then we transition to actual talk therapy. So one of the great things about this is it actually helps with the talk therapy. It helps to enhance it because a lot of times some of us are kind of stuck in our brain and rational thinking that we're not able to kind of shift to the heart work that sometimes is needed, like the emotional part of therapy that's needed to kind of process through things. And so this, helps with that, to kind of help you centered, to become more centered rather. So yeah, that's the process. For the most part, we review the session, and then the person leaves. So it's a really quick process. It's designed to be engaging, like I said, comfortable to help you see real progress over time. Okay. And so on this next slide, I have a couple of testimonials. I don't know if you're able to, is it showing up where you can click on it didn't come through on your end? Oh, you're muted, Allison.
Let me go back and see. It's not coming through on my end.
Is this a PDF you have up or the PowerPoint
I have the
itself?
PowerPoint.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting that it didn't show up.
Give us an overview on it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, no, so it was really just I wanted you to see real testimonials and it was like 2 minutes long each. What I could do is probably share the link later and
Yeah,
maybe
and
share
it may
it.
come through. We're going to share the
Okay.
PDF of the slides, and the link will probably work in the
Mhm.
PDF. So no worries on that.
Okay, well, possibly. Okay, well, if there's any issues, just let me know. I can always send that after the fact. But it's essentially, this was one testimonial. One of them was a mom with a nonverbal autistic child who started after a few sessions, started, actually repeating words. And he was at this time 14. So prior to that, I think 14 or 11, I think it was 14. But prior to that, he had not, engaged in conversation or tried and they'd done several things. And so she was just sharing about that in that video and just how transformative that was for them, for their family. The other session, it was a younger kid. I think might have been about 5 or 4 or 5. And he was there with his mom. You could see, even him still like kind of being impulsive and kind of moving around a lot. But she was kind of just sharing about how it has significantly improved, his ability to just be in school without her being called several times to, about some issue or something, going on with him. So that really is in a nutshell kind of what those videos talked about. And it's good to kind of hear it from the families, right? Because it's not scripted or anything. It's them, and it's not them explaining necessarily the process. It's just saying this is what we started with, and this is how how we are right now. And it's just mind blowing how effective it really can be for a lot of individuals and impactful for the entire family, right? Improving their quality of life overall, helping them build the bonds, that they really should be building, but some of those symptoms have prevented.
Is
Um,
this something that is typically covered by group health insurance, or is it usually out of pocket? And if it's out of pocket, can you give us a range? I mean, I know you don't quote prices for everybody out there that does this, but
yeah.
could you give us a range of about the approximate cost per session? Because I know people have to budget for stuff, you know?
Yes, yes. So I think probably the base rate for a session is about 100 and I think 125, I think is there about. It will range like as from practitioner to practitioner because sometimes some people do additional things and it's just embedded in their other services. But on average, I think about 125 is what it starts for each session. Now, some people also have packages, which I'm one of those people. I have packages where I'll give like a discounted rate because technically, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. It's not one session of your C is not you will start seeing, I shouldn't say will because it doesn't happen for every client, but most of my clients have seen a significant difference in just one session. But for it to be a sustained effect, because what we're doing is like we're training the brain to like be able to shift back and forth as it should, it requires more than just one session.
So the bottom line is the cost is less than your typical psychology appointment. Most
Yeah.
psychologists and psychiatrists are charging anywhere from 150 to 200 and up per
Hmm.
50 minutes. And
Hmm.
it may improve to where you could have fewer visits with the psychologist and things like that. So that may most of those teams that we've used through the years, they typically don't take your insurance, and
Hmm.
typically, I have typically paid out of pocket for that for my family for years, and
Hmm.
it's about what I've paid all the way up to 225 for a 50-minute session. So it's not, it's always nicer when things are covered by insurance, but it's not terribly, it's not cost prohibitive, like it's thousands of dollars per session. So that's good.
Exactly, exactly. Awesome. But yeah, so it's multiple sessions though, and the recommendation is to do at least, 20, about 20 sessions for you to really have like that sustainable results. But like I said, the sessions typically run anywhere from, well, traditional. So in this slide, I'm talking about, the differences, and I'm going to go over that really quick. But it's traditional neurofeedback is about 45 to 60 minutes per session. While microcurrent neurofeedback is more concise, like I mentioned earlier, about 20 to 30 minutes. This efficiency can be especially beneficial for, busy families and children who may have shorter attention spans and, not able to stay in a room for a long period of time. In terms of intensity, traditional neurofeedback requires active participation and focus. So you're like engaging in certain activities to make sure that, you're seeing certain type of brain waves. And it can be challenging for younger children and for those who have severe ADHD. But with microcurrent neurofeedback, as I mentioned earlier, it is passive. Children can relax without needing to focus actively, and it makes it very comfortable and accessible for all ages. And then in terms of the timeline, you start to see results, progress really with microcurrent neurofeedback really in just about 6 to 8 sessions. I say even sooner, but everyone's different. But really, ultimately, in about 8 sessions, you start to see sustainable results. And this faster timeline can be a significant, reduction in the frustration for families who need like some relief right now, right? And so microcurrent neurofeedback offers a faster, less demanding, and more comfortable experience, making it very ideal for younger children that have severe symptoms. And once again, it provides that holistic improvement in, like I mentioned earlier, a trickling down effect to focus, behavior, emotional regulation, and just supporting the overall well-being of the client, whoever is doing this, whether it's a child or an adult. So it just has, and this is why I chose to be trained and certified in this versus because I could have done traditional neurofeedback, right? But this, to me, I was like, people need, relief quickly, but sustainably as well, without feeling like they have to, figure it out themselves. So, and that's why I chose that. So lastly here, I wanted to just touch on just so you guys can see, like, yes, ADHD, but like so many other things that are like, to me, mind blowing, and just gives me so much hope. And I, had several clients from even like ex-Marine clients who've, had PTSD, could not drive on the road, could not be in a, in a small space and without just kind of freaking out to now they're in social environments, they're back doing the things that they love, that motivation to work out that people kind of, they've lost, they are able to do that again, to, just feel better about themselves and just engage and function in their daily lives. This has helped many of my clients with that migraine. That's a big one as well. I had clients who consistently had hormonal based even migraines, and it improved, throughout the time we were in treatments. And I wanted to add this there. It's not something that you have to do indefinitely for the rest of your life or anything like that. Really, after because I want you to think of it just really like a jump start. Like when you jump start a car whose battery is dead, what you don't need to attach it to the car and move all around with the other car. You once it starts, the car knows what to do. It just needed some help, and this is what this does for your body, for your brain. And it's like, okay, now you know what to do. Start doing the things that you should do, once we've gotten to a sustainable
So,
place.
and I think of, as a parent, I always say that I'm on the constant pursuit of information to help, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, to me, if you've tried a lot of things and they haven't worked and you feel frustrated, it might be worth a try. And I know
Yeah.
we're about out of time for today. We got a few minutes left. But one person says, after the initial sessions, is there like a maintenance session? And I know that this is tailored to each individual, but then they also would like to know, why would somebody do traditional neurofeedback as opposed to the microcurrent neurofeedback?
Well, so one of the major differences with, and I'll answer that one about why would someone do that, well, that's first of all kind of existed, right? So people have done that more, but also the mapping. There's a component to the traditional where they're doing brain mapping, and they're actually focusing on specific parts of, locations in the brain where they're, based on the mapping reports, they see like, oh, here in this area, there's something that's dysfunctional there. And so let's target that area for treatments to see overall, which is why it takes a long time. But what microcurrent neurofeedback does is I want you to think of as like it's kind of targeting the entire brain. So it's not just focusing on one area and it's not doing the mapping where it's kind of showing you. So now if you are that kind of person that's like, I want to see what's really going on in my brain. So traditional might be the best option for you. And you're not so, like, okay, about time and, getting relief from the symptoms, that might work. But microcurrent neurofeedback doesn't necessarily do that, and the amount of electrical current as well that goes through is slightly different. There's nuances and like kind of what is the treatment itself and what the person has to go through for the treatment. So
So, I just have to
Was
say,
there another question? Sorry. I think there was
uh,
another
I,
one I didn't
I
touch on.
think that was, let me just peek,
The maintenance. Someone asked
like
about.
the maintenance
Yeah.
session they wanted to know.
Yes, no, absolutely. I have a lot of people who are like, we haven't had a session. They finished their initial, say 12 to 20 sessions, and then they're feeling great, but like life happens, right? So they might get into a place where they're super stressed. In fact, one of the things that the founder, like the guy who actually invented this microcurrent IASIS microcurrent neurofeedback, shared with us during training. He shared about himself. He had what's it called? The ringing in the ears perpetually like all his life, but he started this and it disappeared. But then he had a season where he was constantly traveling again on flights, not eating right, not sleeping right, so everything got dysregulated, and so all he had to do is just get it back on, start doing it again for just a few sessions. And it kind of just, like I said, it's a jump start. It gets you kind of back to where you should be because, like we know, life happens. We get dysregulated, we're stressed out, we're not eating, we're not doing the things we should do, we're not drinking enough water. And so some people will say, hey, guess what? I just know how I feel. I like how I feel overall, and so I will transition to a once a month or, twice a month, whatever it is that works with their life and, and their budget and all of that too. So, yeah.
Well, this has been an awesome topic, and I just love how smart and educated you are on all of
Oh,
this. It just
thank
comes through, and your passion, it just comes through as you're talking. Um,
you.
and everybody's going to get a copy of your slides and a link to the recording, which has your website and the QR code. Do you offer free initial consultations, or do you have a consultation fee for anybody that wants to explore further?
Mhm.
What your practice does exactly or how they might be able to work with you in the future. Tell us how they get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have you just totally advertise that. I have a free consultation. So just make sure it's a right fit for you. And so, I love to talk to people and I hate people being in that hopeless type space where it's like, I don't know what to do. This is overwhelming. So it's like, even if I can just help you in a brief, 20-minute, 30-minute call to just kind of, okay, what's next? What can I target next? If that's all we achieve, that's fine. But I'm more than happy to, take any bookings for that. If you scan that QR code that's on the screen, that will give you a link to kind of how to contact me. But email is right there as well. My business website is wellness.com. So that's another way to reach out to me. But I'm also on social media, Instagram, Facebook. It's another way, to reach out, other ways to reach out to me too. So yeah.
So the key
Yeah.
takeaway tonight is that there is help out there. There are ideas. There are not off the beaten path ideas that have been very helpful for others. So don't be discouraged. And you can sometimes think outside of the box, and sometimes people feel like, well, we've tried everything and nothing works. They feel that. But sometimes, like we were talking at the beginning, it could be a simple reaction to a medication that a person shouldn't be taking. There's so many things, but the bottom line is there's help out there. So whether you are an adult that struggles, or you have kids that struggle, or maybe it's both in your household, there's help, and everybody that gets help, things run smoother in your house. That is for sure. Well, we are out of time for tonight. We try to start on time and end on time every time. Dr. Bibi, we are going to definitely have you back. It has been awesome. And thanks everyone for your good questions. And thanks for being here tonight. And we'll look forward to connecting with you and having another webinar with you again soon.
Yes. Thank you all so much. My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Take care, everyone. Have a good night. Bye-bye.